Hey there everybody, how you doing? I am Francis and welcome back to Sonic Adventure 2. Is it possible to beat this game as Mechless Tails? I didn't realize how long I was talking with the last part, so I'm gonna try my best and keep part 2 short. So I'm not gonna waste any time, we're just gonna jump back into this, enjoy the show as we tackle the Dark Story. The Dark Story begins in Iron Gate, and right off the bat, without getting that far, this is alright impossible as Mechless Tails. You run down this corridor, no problem, but once you get to the end of the corridor, you see this iron gate that locks up on you, and since Mechless Tails is lacking a Vulcan cannon, there ain't much you can do about this door, and yeah, he's trapped. He can't get past the first room, so this ain't looking good. Here, I try to kill myself to restart the level, and from here, I decide to fly while I'm falling into the level, but as you can see, I'm kind of near the ceiling though when I finally start flying, so that didn't work, so I couldn't outbalance myself, so yeah, it goes without saying, Mechless Tails cannot beat Iron Gate. He can't even get past the first level. You can't even use Omochao. I mean, Omochao reacts when you hit the corners, as we just saw there, but he can't open it. He just sort of just gets tossed into a corner and is knocked out. Hotshot is literally the same thing as Bigfoot, so if we couldn't hurt Bigfoot, obviously we can't do Hotshot either, so we're not going to talk about this that much and we're just going to move on, alright? Dry Lagoon is the first treasure hunting stage from the Dark Story. And since Wild Canyon was 100% possible, I went into this thinking that surely the dark counterpart would also be possible. Boy, oh boy, was I wrong though! As you guys know, the main gimmick for this stage is to use this turtle to travel between oases, but the problem is that as Mechless Tails, Turtle crashes the game. So since the Turtle crashes the game, that means we have to find all 3 of the Master Emerald pieces in this oasis. And it's not as easy as that though, because Tails is actually limited to where he can go in the small oasis since he has a very, very low jumping, and his flying is kind of more like hovering, so he can't really get up too high, which is also another major setback for Tails. Doing this, I was only able to find 1 Master Emerald piece. I couldn't get the other 2 because 1 always seems to respawn in the big oasis, and as you know, Tails can't get over there because going to the big oasis crashes the game because Turtle crashes the game. I was able to find 1, and that's really all I could do. Because they kept spawning high up where Tails just can't reach that high. Like, getting on top of this building is really as high as Tails can go. I spent 35 minutes with this stage and, well, I just deemed that as impossible and moved on because, wow, this stage. I think this one would be possible if I was able to travel between oases, but we can't, so sorry, Dry Lagoon is impossible. Sand Ocean I was scared about going into because I remember what Hidden Base was like, but thankfully, unlike Hidden Base, Sand Ocean doesn't ask too much of Mechless Tails, so for the most part, you're basically just doing this stage as you normally would as Eggman, except for Tails doesn't have a Vulcan cannon, so he can't shoot down these pillars and make bridges, but that's okay because Tails can fly and he can just fly over the gap, so basically you just do what you normally would do as Eggman, except for when there are bridges, and instead of knocking the pillars down, you just fly. I learned something very interesting here, that popping balloons while you're flying kind of shoots you up really, really high. I honestly didn't know that, and I thought that was pretty cool. So everything was going great in Sand Ocean until I came here. At this moment I realized when I was flying after I popped the balloon, I should have stayed in the air, but I didn't, and Tails can't get over those, so I flew back a little bit back to see if I could get up high so I could fly over those containers. This is as high as I could get, and this wasn't enough height, so I couldn't move on, so I had no choice here but to restart the level. And this time I realized this time I'll just continue flying after I popped that balloon, because coming down honestly was my biggest mistake. Honestly, flying in Sand Ocean as Mechless Tails was not as scary as Hidden Base because the level doesn't despawn as much as it did in Hidden Base. Oh boy, that stage was an absolute nightmare. So yeah, just follow the geometry of the stage. There are the containers. We now got past that so we can go on the stage. And I realized that going down was my mistake, so I decided that I'm just gonna stay in the air and keep going. And this part here is another problem I had. You see these Jacko Echidna statues? Well, you fly down them, and once you get near the end, it turns you around. It doesn't just turn you around though. It like resets you. It takes you back to the first set of Jacko statues. And no matter how many times you do that, it's just going to keep sending you back to the first one. Like here I'm trying to maybe fly around. And flying around this way did work, but the camera kind of stopped following me. And there was an invisible wall here, so I couldn't go down to that section. So this was a tragedy. After a while, I realized that attempting this was futile, so I bit the bullet and I came down and I found these booster pads and I honestly forgot about them. And oh boy, did they shoot you high! But I'm glad that they do, because as you're being shot into the air, you can start flying again and regain your height and just continue on your way. The camera still is a nightmare because you are going ways that the game didn't anticipate you to go. And yeah, that's the end of stage. Honestly, Sand Ocean doesn't really ask that much of you. It is very possible, as Mechless Tails, that Jacko statue thing was really the only headache. But yeah, Sand Ocean is doable as Mechless Tails. We finally found a level in a dark story that is doable. Only took us 3 levels to get here though. This stage. Something I thought I would never say about Radical Highway, but unfortunately this stage gave me more problems than I anticipated it would as Mechless Tails. It's the first Shadow stage, right? This stage doesn't ask much of Shadow. It's basically a tutorial teaching you how to play as Shadow, right? How bad can it be, right? Oh, you'll see what I mean. Trust me, you'll see. The first half of this level honestly isn't that bad. You just go through it, play as you normally would as if you were playing as Shadow. Like you just run down the highways, you jump off the boosties, and it's not that bad, right? Sure, there are some things that Tails can't do, like use the pulleys, but for the most time you can just fly, you know? So anything you can't do, you just fly. And like I said, the first half isn't that bad. This part at first glance, I thought I was going to have troubles with this because, well, Tails can't jump up there and you know how pulleys work. But you can see a ramp down there, which is the rest of the stage, so you don't have to worry about that and just go onto the ramp and you can continue the stage like you normally would. Now, remember through Cityscape how I mentioned that these pulleys that you swing on can crash the game? That is very important for Radical Highway. You don't want to touch that pole down there. I just flew from here to get up here, and this is kind of where I ran into another problem. There are some iron containers, which, you know, Tails can't break, but that's fine. There's a spring over here that I can use, and oh yeah. Yeah, there's a pulley, and oh boy, this really held me back, because you guys know how pulleys work with Mechless Tails, right? He doesn't grab onto them, and if you fly into them, though, you can get some extra height. I decided to fly off for a bit and explore and hope to find the rest of the level, but I couldn't see anything. I didn't want to get too far. I got kind of scared because I wasn't seeing anything no matter how far I flew out, so eventually I just turned back and I was like thinking, alright, you know what, I can use that pulley. I'm pretty sure this can happen. Because we said before, I did it with the pulley before, like in Hidden Base, but you just have to fly at the perfect time and then hit it again as the pulley comes down after you grab onto it. So I had to fiddle with that for a little bit, and eventually I did pull it off, get it to work. And as you can see, it didn't get me high enough. Oh, this was so heartbreaking. So I flew around for a bit and I saw the missile. And I saw that the missile was pointing down this way, so I just flew that way, and there was the rest of the level. So we could continue. Back to business as you normally would. Again, I can't stress it enough with this challenge how the camera was the biggest enemy. Oh my god. Running down this section, I ran into another slight problem. Like, you run down the highway as you know would, no big problem, but remember at the end there's one of these things you gotta spin under, and I can't stress this enough that Tails is incapable of doing a somersault, so we can't get past that. So I ran back thinking, you know what, maybe I can't go down this way because I can't somersault under that, but maybe I can fly around a building. Normally with this challenge, if you can't get past something, you find a way around it. So I flew around the building, and at the end of the building was the rest of the highway, so I could just land there and continue on my way. And well, this is where things got annoying. Since I went away, the game didn't anticipate me to go. The camera was kind of weird. And as you can see, Tails is not exactly touching the ground. Ugh, that is so weird. And unfortunately, this is where my problems began. Because after that loop, you get launched off a spring and you grab onto a pole, and as you know, poles crash the game. And this happened 2 other times while I was playing this because I just kind of forgot about that. Oh my god, this stage. Alright, so this time when I approached the loop, I was thinking, you know what, maybe I won't take the loop and I'll just fly around it. But as you can see, as I tried to jump off the edge, gravity got a bit weird and it kind of prevented Tails from flying over. I don't know why, it's probably because the loop was scripted. So I had no choice but to run the loop, but I quickly put on the brakes and I started to fly the moment I got through the loop. And then flying down here, I just wasn't too sure where to go, so I had to fly back. So I decided to take the loop again, but this time when I get to the top of the loop, I would fly. But like I said, if you try and break the, going around the loop at any point, it just gets weird. Like your gravity gets altered and you just, well, you just can't skip the loop. It's programmed that you have to run this loop. So, no matter where you try and fly, as you're seeing, it just kind of flips Tails around. Here, I was able to get off the loop, but the camera was acting wonky because the game thinks I'm still on the loop. The camera really was my biggest issue in this whole challenge. But once you're able to land, you land over here and you can go on the business as usual. You can't use that spring in there, but that's no problem. As you guys know, when there's a ramp that's going downhill, you can just fly to the ramp, and most of the time, like this one, you can just fly through it. It's always kind of weird that Tails can just phase through things. Maybe he really is a ghost. And now we move on to this section, and this section was the biggest problem I have with this challenge. As you can see, Tails' running animation kind of freezes as he goes through that, and then he stops on a ramp and then he just falls and plummets to his death. I don't know why it does that. And this was the one thing that held me back the most. Again, this was another scripted loop, so you can't exactly skip over it. I tried a few other times, and every time that Tails would fall, I would try to fly and save myself. And when I do, it just takes me back to the beginning of the loop, and it happens exactly like it did before, where I just fall and plummet to my death. This, I don't even know why it works the way it does. Like, I think it's a scripted loop and they want you to do it. You can even try and skip the loop by flying past it, but once you reach a certain part, it just takes you back to the beginning of the loop, kind of like it did with Sand Ocean with the Echidna statues. Alright, so this time I flew past the loop, and this time I wasn't going to land near the loop. I was actually going to fly straight to the goal, and that's actually how we were supposed to do things. So, Radical Highway, yeah, it's doable as Mechless Tails, but my god. It was way much more trouble than it was worth. Headquarters was a stage that I was scared about going into as Mechless Tails because this is the stage that Rouge learns how to dig. And as we saw with Pumpkin Hill, one Master Emerald piece was always underground. So I thought this stage was going to be doing the same thing, but surprisingly that wasn't the case. This stage was actually very possible as Mechless Tails. You still do have to be slow and take your time because it is headquarters, so the beetle is still a thing. But yeah, it was very, very, very possible, and that surprised me because, well, you know what the Pumpkin Hill is like. The first key was in this E1000 robot. The second key was originally in a chest that I just couldn't find, so I jumped into a fire and killed Tails, and I relocated inside this key, and the last key was just hanging around here. So this makes me think that Pumpkin Hill may have been possible, but I just had some really bad RNG. But I didn't want to bother going back and trying it out. So yeah, we found our first treasure hunting stage in a dark story that was possible. And surprisingly, it is headquarters of all places. Lost Colony is 100% impossible. In fact, you can't even get past the first room. There isn't much else to talk about here, so we're just going to move on, alright? Just like with Mission Street, Weapons Bed doesn't ask a whole lot from Eggman, so it is actually completely possible with Mechless Tails, no problem. Just run through it as you normally would with Eggman, except for instead of a broken can, you can destroy these robots using your tail attack. These blocks here did present me with a little bit of a problem, but there's a very conveniently placed chow box that you can use to get over this wall, so no problem there. Also, this was kind of a funny death that happened during this run. I thought it was kind of funny. I got a good laugh out of it, so I thought I would share it with you guys. So yeah, with this stage, there really wasn't much problems. You just go through the stage as you normally would as Eggman, because just like with Mission Street, this stage is mostly getting you used to using your hovering ability, so Tails can fly, so it's not really an issue. So yeah, there ain't too much to say here. Weapons bed is 100% possible. It is actually very fun, so we're not going to talk much about this, and we're just going to move on, alright? You already know how the Tails and Eggman battle goes, so we won't talk about this, and we'll just move on to the next stage, alright? Security hall. I always hate the stage playing it normally, and it's an even bigger headache with Mechless Tails. This was possible as Mechless Tails, but it involved a lot of dying and a lot of restarting because Chaos Emeralds like to spawn in safes, and Mechless Tails, as you guys know, can't dig, so he can't open safes, so this is the level where I finally decided to turn on the Infinite Lives cheat, so I don't have to worry about game overing anymore. As you guys know, pulleys don't exactly work the way they should as Mechless Tails, so you can't get up to the top section where you can turn on the switches and where all the lasers are, but that's okay because you can't really go into the safes anyway. So if any Chaos Emeralds spawn up there, you have no choice but to kill Mechless Tails because as you guys know, he can't go up there. Anyways, the first Chaos Emerald was in this already open safe, conveniently open for Mechless Tails. It's like unexpected Tails to be coming here and decided to just, give him the Chaos Emerald because he's had a hard time with this challenge. The second Chaos Emerald was in this tank enemy. And the final Chaos Emerald was inside the safe that I had to blow open using one of these missiles. After a countless number of times I had to kill Tails using the following weights because the emeralds kept spawning inside the safes as I mentioned before. But yeah, Security Hall, 100% possible as Mechless Tails. But you know what was not possible as Mechless Tails? Flying Dog. Flying Dog is the same as Bigfoot and Hotshot. If I can't hurt them, I can't hurt this guy either, so yet again, another impossible boss fight as Mechless Tails. Remember the problems we had with Green Forest as Mechless Tails? Well, since White Jungle is pretty much the same stage, expect the same issues we had with Green Forest. Meaning we have to avoid any vines, because if you grab a vine as Mechless Tails, game crashes. As you just saw right there. That means, just like with Green Forest, we're going to have to take our time, and we're going to have to basically just fly a lot and explore, and just hope that we can find more of the levels, and just avoid hitting any springs, and touching any vines. So, oh boy, I already knew going into this that this is going to be a hard time, and I'm going to need the 10 minutes that we are given to do this. Still, you can fly through trees. They're not exactly solid because the game doesn't expect the shell to go down this way. After about a minute of blindly flying around, I found this section of the stage, so I decided to follow the stage from here. I wasn't going to land originally, but since the camera was clipping through the wall, I thought it'd be best for me to just go down and then continue from there. And see these pulley vines here? I didn't think they would crash the game, since they're a little bit differently, but they are still vines. But as you can see, yeah, it crashed the game. I just had to test it to make sure. It's good to know now that that is a thing. So yeah, we basically just don't want to touch anything that makes Tails do stuff, because it's just going to crash the game, because Tails doesn't do stuff that he's supposed to do. So this time I decided to start flying the moment I dropped into the stage, and I just flew to the left and I committed going left. And it didn't take me that long to find the rest of the stage this time. So going left was the right idea. And since we learned that the pulleys kind of crashed the game, I decided I wasn't going to go down, and I was just going to try and stay as high as possible. I always got scared of landing because this stage is mostly going up stage. This part we need to use a pulley, but since we can't use the pulley, that's okay. We have to take this longer way, which is using these shifting platforms. I'm very glad these exist, otherwise this is where the stage would be impossible as Mechless Tails. Well, not really. We would just have to fly out of bounds, like we have to here anyways, because we can't spin dash under that thing. And I was trying to clip through that tree, but as you can see, we can't clip through the tree, and now I'm pretty sure I'm too low that I can't continue from here. Alright, so this time after bouncing off the final spring, I decided to try flying, and surprisingly, I could clip through the tree up here. And I'm pretty sure that I could clip through it there because Shadow normally can't go that high, so of course they wouldn't code the whole tree. I think it's kind of weird though that they decided to code some of the tree but not all the tree. I did some backtracking here because as you saw the camera was a bit weird, and I was looking at Tails from front, so I couldn't really see where I was going. So I fixed the camera doing that, and now we can continue running some more. I did this a lot where I just sort of jump off while being shot and flying, because I was always scared, not sure what was coming next, you know? Like, normally you don't really have these problems, but when you're playing as Mechless Tails, touching almost anything just crashes the game. And here we had the same problem we had in Green Forest as Sonic. The loops don't fall all the way through, so you just drop like a rock. But with enough determination, you will eventually be able to make it. I'm kind of struggling with it more here than I did in Green Forest, but this time I started to fly, and that helped me get up. And, well, problemo! I can't break wooden boxes without a trusty Omochao or a throwing companion. And right now I don't have a throwing companion, and this robot is the worst thing ever. But I found a mushroom here that I could use, and I was shaking the mushroom there, but I was able to destroy the robot with that, so that was nice. And luckily that mushroom is laying around, otherwise we won't be able to break these boxes and continue on our way. So thank you, conveniently placed mushroom. I don't know why these stages have picky up items, but I'm glad that they do. So we had to do some more blindy flying. The tree is not flying throughable, so you do have to fly around. Luckily the rest of the stage is right over here, but I got kind of too low that I couldn't land up there. But there is a nice little platform down here that we can land on. And this is where Shadow gets the light shoes, so light speed dashing, but as you know, Tails can't do that, but that's fine. He can follow the trail of rings, and that just gets us back on track. So yay! And then here, I stupidly forgot what kind of challenge I was doing, and forgot what the springs do, and I stupidly hit that spring, grabbed the vine, and I remembered, oh yeah, I'm playing as Mechless Tails, and playing as Mechless Tails crashes the game, so I had to start over again. I hate this part so much. I just dropped like a rock. I don't understand why Tails drops like a rock. It's like he has his physics when he's riding a mech. And the fact that he has the sound effects of his mech makes me think that too, but as we're about to see, that's not the case. Alright, this time from this section, I kind of flew higher than I did before, because this time I knew what was coming. And this time I actually got to the section where Shadow gets the air shoes where you can do the light speed dash. And while descending, I noticed that there was a spring on a platform, so I thought, how about I go and hit that spring, and then I fly while hitting it. I had some trouble doing that though because the camera really didn't want to cooperate with me. The camera really was my biggest enemy in this. So I did that, and I had height once again, and this time I flew and followed the stage as the game intended me to go, which is right over here instead of taking that lower path I took last time. But I'm pretty sure this takes me to the same spot, but this time, as you can see, I'm kind of being more careful when trying to slow Tails down on these loops, although the physics ain't exactly working. And right now I'm just blindly flying, hoping to find more of the stage, but as you can see, the camera's not exactly following Tails, so this was disheartening. Here I thought I actually landed in the rest of the stage, but as you can see, I did not. I did not go anywhere. So I ended up flying out of bounds and ended up killing Tails. So this time from this checkpoint, unlike last time where I landed, where you get the air shoes, this time I just flew and I refused to ever land. So this was a lot of just following the stage from up above. And it looks like this was the way to do it because this time the camera didn't stop following Tails like it did last time where I just, followed the path. Hi, Big. I never noticed, by the way, many times I played this that Big's just hanging around up there, but it was nice to see Big. Anyways, from here we just follow the stage as we normally would, except for we don't want to use these pulley things, but we can easily fly straight to the goal. here I didn't know exactly where that final pole is supposed to launch you, so I'm just following the rings here and following the sound of the gold ring. So yeah, there we go. We just beat White Jungle as Mechless Tails. It was one of the most stressful parts of this challenge, but yeah, it was very, very doable. Just, you gotta be very, very careful not to touch anything. Sonic vs. Shadow, another character battle. You already know how this goes, so we don't really have to talk about it. I didn't notice this during the hero story because you normally play as Tails for Route 101. But for Route 101 and for Route 280, you have to play as a character you would normally control. No matter who you set the mod for you to play as, you will always be playing as Tails and Rouge for these stages. So since Route 101 was possible, I guess in this case we can give Tails a bye since we know he could do Route 101 and Route 280 is basically the same thing, just some holes in the ground. So if Route 101 was possible, I think we can give Tails a bye and just say, yeah, Route 280 is possible. I'm not the biggest Tails fan, of course, but I'm just being fair here, and I think he's earned this after everything he's gone through thus far. Skyrail is honestly a very fun stage, and since this stage is mostly going downhill, it is actually very, very possible as Mechless Tails. You can't grind down the rails, but that's fine. Tails can fly. So besides flying down rails, you just do the stage as you normally would as Shadow, except for when you get to rails, you start flying, and there's honestly not much to report here. It's a very fun stage, just like it was when you played as Shadow, and we're just going to move on, because there ain't really too much else to say about this. Although I do feel like I have to note that the bouncy things that you normally use as Shadow, Tails can't use, but most of the time there's something you can use, like either a spring like there, or sometimes you can just land on part in the environment and jump off it. But yeah, besides that, yeah, Skyrail, very possible as Mechless Tails. Don't really have to do anything tricky. The only thing you really have to worry about is the camera, because the camera does some weird turnings around because it's expecting you to be on the railings, and as you know, for Tails, you can't be because Tails doesn't know how to grind. So be very careful with the camera, but besides that, like I said, it is very, very possible. This was one of my proudest saves, and I was so proud of this that I wanted to show it with you guys. Like, it looked like I was doing there, but this guy sort of just came falling down and he saved Tails. So I think that enemy might be conspiring against Dr. Robotnik, or Dr. Eggman, sorry. And he actually wanted to help Tails, so hey buddy, thanks for the lift. So far we've been on a roll with things being beatable as Mechless Tails, but sadly our luck is going to run out. Because up next we fight the Egg Golem, and you guys remember how Mechless Tails could beat the Egg Golem in the hero story, right? Well, sadly it is impossible in the dark story, since in the dark story, his weakness is not on his head, instead his weakness is inside him. And as you guys know, and I can't stress this enough, Mechless Tails lacks a Vulcan cannon, and you can't hurt him by flying into him, so Egg Golem was 100% impossible as Mechless Tails, and really anybody who's not a mech, honestly. Just like with Meteor Herd, it didn't take me that long to realize that Mad Space was impossible as Mechless Tails. You can somewhat do more than what you could in Meteor Herd, kinda. You can use this rocket here to go to the Spherical Island, and that's honestly all you can do. You're not getting off this planet, it is impossible. Maybe you can get at least one Master Emerald to spawn down here. I wasn't able to, but you might get one down there because I know that some of them can spawn down here, but you won't be getting all three, and you know what? I'm perfectly fine with that. I hate this stage. Another character battle, another round with the glitchy Eggman that crashes the game. Let's just move on and not waste our time with this. As you know, Cosmic Wall is a gravity-altering stage. I was thinking, since Mechless Tails uses the hovering sound effects of a mech, and in White Jungle he had the physics of a mech, so I thought maybe, just maybe the gravity would affect Mechless Tails and by flying I would go up. But nope, the gravity-altering effects have no effect on Mechless Tails. Tails just hovers in a spot, same as he normally does. I tried flying out looking for the stage, but as you guys know, this stage is mostly going vertical, and no matter where I flew, whatever direction I went, I just ended up fighting a death plane and killing Tails. So, Cosmic Wall is sadly impossible as Mechless Tails, and honestly, that is a shame because this is my favorite Eggman stage, and I can't even do it. Our final encounter with Tails is no different from our first encounter with Tails, so we'll just move on. Final Chase has a bit of a rude starting where you sort of just start plummeting. So if you're not fast and you start flying, you're gonna just die right at the get-go. Anyways, Final Chase I was worried about because of the gravity tubes. I was worried that these tubes would either not work or they would crash the game because basically everything else Mechless Tails touches crash, but that was not the case. The tubes work kind of like they did when you play as Shadow, so you still will, you know, be going all around with them. And this is pretty much the same idea as Final Rush, just fly when you're supposed to be grinding because, as you know, Mechless Tails cannot grind. And the gravity tubes work the way they do, and this was actually very possible and it wasn't as bad as Final Rush was. Final Rush was kind of worse than Final Chase because Final Rush focused more on grinding and sometimes it's going more upward. Where Final Chase is kind of more of a going downward stage and the gravity tubes. So yeah, Final Chase was not honestly too bad and actually very, very, very doable. You just go about it as you normally would as Shadow, and you don't really have to worry about the gravity tubes because they work the way that they should. So this is the first and honestly only challenge I ran into at this stage. Tails cannot run up the slope as we kind of figured he can't because he's not as fast as Sonic or Shadow. But that's fine, you know. He can easily just fly straight down this way, which is where the rest of the stage is. So the slope's not a problem, but going down here, something I didn't expect to happen happened. Remember how I said these gravity tubes work the way they should? Well, this one here decided to work even better than the other ones, and it kind of pulled Tails in as he was flying by, and no matter how much I jumped and tried to fly, I couldn't escape the gravitational pull. I was stuck on this tube, and I just couldn't get off of it. I had no choice here but to restart. I couldn't find a way to get off of this tube. This time I stayed up high instead of going down onto that slope to run up like I did last time because I was honestly scared of getting stuck in that gravitational pull again. So I decided I'll just stay as high as possible so that tube won't be a problem. And then I saw my worst fear here as there were several tubes and I was like, oh no. Are they all going to present a problem? And no, for some reason, it was only that one that pulled me in. That one there, I could jump off no problem. I don't understand why that one had a stronger pull than the others. I don't know. But either way, that was the only problem I had with the stage. The rest of this was 100% easy. This stage was completely possible as Mechless Tails. There ain't really too much else to talk about. So let's move on to the final battle. And the final battle is no different from the hero story. Game crashes after the introduction. And that concludes the Dark story. Now we can talk about the last story, but this won't take that long to talk about at all. Unfortunately, Canon's Core, we can't even get past the first room since we are greeted with a door that is locked with bombs. And Mechless Tails lacks a Vulcan cannon, so we can't blow them up. I tried restarting this level to see if I could fly through the walls, but no good. Every single wall is solid, so unfortunately Cannon's Core is impossible. The Bio Lizard unfortunately is also impossible for Mechless Tails. Since he can't grind and he has no other way of reaching a life support system on his back, there is nothing against this lizard he can do. Just like with Route 280 and Route 101, you have no choice with this battle but to play as Super Sonic and Super Shao, no matter who you choose in the mod to play as. I want to end this video on a high note, so I'm just gonna let this play as I do my outro. Bottom line, the Mechless Tails challenge was, without any question, the biggest frustration of my life. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this challenge. I don't know if I'll ever do another challenge like this, but you know what they say, never say never, right? Either way, I was surprised with how much was actually possible as Mechless Tails. I'll give credit where it is due. Tails, without his mech, he was kind of more capable than I expected. So, you did good though, buddy. Never thought you'd hear me compliment Tails that way, but yeah, I gotta give him credit where he is due. He did a good job. No mech or anything. He did very well. I'll be honest. So either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this little challenge, and I'll see you guys next time. But until then, have a nice day. Bye, everybody.